Your old news, fat boy. So, a couple of days ago, I made a video discussing the latest Nintendo Switch Mini rumors. And in that video, I mentioned how every single day, I'm waiting and waiting for the day that Nintendo finally shows us this thing so I can make a video talking about the actual product and the real facts. And when I made this video, like 2 or 3 days ago, I thought that that day would almost never come. But I was wrong, because here we are today. I woke up 1 hour ago to get ready for work, and all I see everywhere is Nintendo Switch LITE. Yep, it's true. The Nintendo Switch LITE, which we previously were calling the Nintendo Switch Mini for like the last year, has finally turned out to be real, you guys. Nintendo released a 6-minute video this morning detailing a lot of stuff about the Nintendo Switch LITE. So obviously, we have to get into this. It's a pretty exciting thing. You know, my opinions are all over the place, and I'm going to get into that. But at the end of the day, it's still like a big piece of news. It's new hardware. There is excitement that comes along with it. A lot of people I'm also seeing are reacting very positively to it. There are some not so positive reactions, which I, of course, completely understand because, like I said, my opinions are definitely all over the place. But yeah, man, at the end of the day, we finally live in a world where this thing is real. And it's not the Mini. We've all been calling it Nintendo Switch Mini. And they went with the LITE name, which of course they did for the DS family way back in the day. They went from DS to DS LITE, L-I-T-E, and they're doing the same thing here with the Nintendo Switch. So there's a lot to get into here. Where to start, really? What's the best thing to start with? So we'll talk about when it's coming out. It's coming out on September 20th, so it's only a couple of months away at this point, which is really crazy. It is right ahead of us. And it's releasing for $199.99, which was also a price point that a lot of people had talked about. $200 for a Nintendo Switch LITE. Now, this thing is doing a lot of things differently from the Nintendo Switch, and so many of these things were also already talked about, predicted, all sorts of things. There's been so much conversation about this thing that there's almost no way Nintendo could have surprised us. We're going to start with the big thing, and the thing that I want to talk about, and that is the fact that it is confirmed that this thing cannot be played on your TV. And obviously, I was dead set sure that if Nintendo was going to release a new Nintendo Switch device, even if it's a light, mini, portable, whatever, that it would still, even if it was a mobile-focused device, would still offer the ability to be played on your TV, whether it had a special dock or whether it just used a cable that plugged into the HDMI in the back of your TV. I thought there is no way in hell Nintendo would be that crazy to make a Switch device that couldn't switch. And I was wrong. I was completely wrong. Ever since Michael Pachter put out his first prediction, and I made a video discussing why Nintendo won't make a handheld-only Switch, I've believed that. However, that's what Nintendo did. Michael Pachter was right. A good friend of mine, Smash JT, made a video responding to Pachter saying he absolutely thought that was going to happen. He was correct. So that's what's happening. It is a Switch device that does not switch. So do with that information what you will. I find it to be, while it makes sense, and I completely understand why they're doing it, I find it to be a massive disappointment, and it is a huge letdown. I think it detracts from so much of the appeal to this console, even for $100 less, even for kids, because I know that that's the big defense is it's for kids and it's cheaper, so it doesn't need to do that. Yeah, I mean, probably there's probably something to that. I'm sure that's why Nintendo did it. I still think it's a missed opportunity, and it doesn't make much sense, and unless I'm wrong, because I don't know tech specs the way a lot of you guys do, unless I'm wrong, I don't know that they're saving any money with this. I mean, I understand some of the other decisions they made to cut costs, save money, and sell the system cheaper, but removing the ability to, like, plug something from here to your TV, even if they sold the cable separately as an upsell, did they save money designing the Switch LITE without the ability to just plug into your TV? Maybe they did, but I'm going to put my money on no, they didn't. Which means I don't think that selling this console for cheaper justifies the lack of the ability to play on your TV. The other stuff, yes, but the TV-specific thing, I don't know, man. It doesn't feel right to me. Now, some of the other big things that are different is that this thing is quite a bit smaller. Not only is the whole form factor smaller, but the screen itself is also significantly smaller. And there are breakdowns on Nintendo's website you can see. So, whereas I think we all obviously assumed a Mini or a Lite to be smaller, this thing is much smaller than at least I was predicting. I did not think it was going to be so tiny. And that's interesting and kind of cool. It obviously becomes kind of fun to see like how much smaller they can make a device, and portable devices being small is the ideal way. You need this balance between being like small and cute, but also big enough to be impressive and get the gaming experience across. And considering you have to hold the system, you know, with your hands on each side, you don't want it too small. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even have the world's biggest hands, but the Joy-Cons are really small. When I love playing my Switch portably, but man, it does cramp after probably 20 or 30 minutes. It's pretty rough. And so now this thing is even smaller. Again, probably showcasing how it's more designed for kids and small people than it is for adults, but you know, we're all adults who are thinking about this thing and interested in it and like following Nintendo devices and would maybe want to be coerced into buying it. And so finding out that it's even tinier certainly doesn't help in that respect. The other big Joy-Con news is what we all basically assumed is the Joy-Cons do not attach. Basically, there are no Joy-Cons. It is just one solid cohesive device. And what's pretty interesting, and I tweeted about this morning as soon as I saw this thing, is basically these Switch Lites confirm that leaked photo from like 6 or 7 months ago was legit, because there's a couple of slight differences, but it would have obviously been in the process of being designed. But as far as I can see, that leak was real. That was an actual shell for the real Switch LITE model, like the actual casing of what the final thing was going to look like, because it matches completely in everything that we see to what's in this commercial and what the Switch LITE has turned out to be. So I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah, no Joy-Cons, and yeah, I mean, it's cool that they did confirm that you can use regular Joy-Cons on the Switch LITE, which means a game like 1-2 Switch that requires Joy-Con usage can still be played. I think that is definitely smart and really great, and it does soften the blow of the lack of Joy-Cons. Because I'm someone who likes the Joy-Cons. I know most people don't, and to be fair, Nintendo and companies have not been taking advantage of Joy-Cons and their features, and I think that's a shame. But I've always liked the idea of them, and so losing them, to me, is definitely an unfortunate drawback. But this is where the cheaper price totally makes sense and justifies it. Because with no Joy-Cons comes no HD rumble and no IR sensor. All of that stuff is out of the console. You can't separate these devices. There's like not any motors and stuff obviously built into the Joy-Con separately, so they've saved a lot of money there, and it's also pulling away a feature. So whereas the lack of TV play is pulling away a feature, but that doesn't justify less money, this is one where it's pulling away a feature that does justify less of a price. And so that's kind of where we stand with this thing. Now, there are two other curious pieces of news that weren't really touched on here that seem to be not the greatest. Let's talk about that 1080 screen, because that was the rumor that just happened the other day that seemed pretty plausible and had a lot of people excited. It's the video that I discussed a couple of days ago, and there is no mention of the 1080 screen, either in the commercial or on Nintendo's website that I could see. So it seems like that was just completely not true. There is still talk about the Switch Pro maybe coming out next year and Nintendo working on a different device. And so maybe that person who reported that was conflating the information and maybe getting the 1080p screen from the Switch Pro device that may or may not exist and confused that with also being on the Mini, because I don't think that this thing has that. Honestly, if it did have that, it would have been one of the first things that they said in that video presentation today, and it wasn't touched on. Same also holds true for a better battery life. There's no indication that this thing has a better battery life either, which to me is another huge missed opportunity. Nintendo would have definitely said that. That video with Koizumi, I know he would have said, because he talks about the features and what's different about it, and then he even spends, and I joked about this on Twitter, the whole last minute of this video was them detailing all of the things the Switch LITE can't do, which I find that hilariously ironic, as somebody who's really just mixed on this whole thing anyway. But you would also think, to counteract that, you want to talk about all of the things that it can do, or that it does add, or that makes it a benefit. It's why they talked about games that are already existing. Like, you bring up a game like, you can play Smash Brothers and Mario Odyssey on this. You do that only because it counteracts the list of 7 things you said that it can't do anymore. Because it's obvious you can play Switch games on the Switch. But you need to, it's kind of like, it's sales 101, and I used to go to sales classes, and I've had sales jobs, and it's all about the qualifying, and it's all about the justification of price. How do you provide the value? And so by just saying obvious things like, you can play great games on this, it's trying to undo the damage of listing negatives. And so that's what they did. And so if this thing had a 1080 screen, and if this thing had a better battery life, you better believe they would have talked about it. And so don't mistake my words here. I'm not saying that this thing, a Switch Lite, had to have a 1080 screen or better battery life to be successful or to be good to people. Because I don't think that's true. I think for the market they're trying to make this thing for, it's probably fine, and a lot of those people won't even really care and think, oh, it's totally fine simply because it's only $199. To me, that's not the case. That's not how I feel. I would have liked those things, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I already have a Switch anyway, so it's not like I need this thing. I was certainly, in a world where this thing became real, I was going to be looking for reasons to be excited for it and looking for reasons to buy it. But I really haven't seen enough of those. And so that really just kind of walks me right into my overall opinions and feelings here on this actual device, which you can already tell I've basically already stated them. You know, it's a quality looking device. I think that some people are excited for it, and I think it is going to do just fine for itself. And so that's good. I'm happy for it, and I'm happy for people who are interested in it, whether it's for themselves or whether it's for young kids. That's great. I, however, really am not impressed. I don't feel really great about this thing personally. And again, that's okay. Keep in mind, I'm obviously not the target market. I've already got a Switch. I don't need to replace it for anything anytime soon. So if Nintendo brings out a device that is totally harmless to me, that doesn't affect my current gaming and my current Switch time, then I don't really care. Okay, so if you're a big defender, please understand that. I'm not saying it's bad and it shouldn't exist and you shouldn't like it. I'm just saying, if I was to evaluate my buying decision on this thing, it's pretty much a no. And when I look at it as a device that could have otherwise been really appealing, I walk away disappointed. And I think it's because regardless of like the Joy-Con thing or the size of the thing or whatever, the two things that I was looking for that could have really convinced me to be interested and maybe want to consider picking one up for myself, this thing doesn't have. The 1080 screen and the ability to be played on a TV. Those are huge losses to me and huge things that really, well, let me correct myself. The 1080 thing is not really a loss. The lack of TV play is a huge loss. And those things totally affect how I view this thing for my own self. But again, I can analyze this thing for the market that it's being marketed to, for the people it's being made for the business decision that it is. I can separate these worlds. I think maybe sometimes people can't separate those worlds, and things they like or want are the only things that seem to make sense in their world, and they have no concept of anything outside that could be for other people. That's not me. I don't really care about this thing. It's disappointing and unappealing to me like crazy. However, I think it's a smart looking product. I think it's going to do very well. And I think most people that buy it knowing what it is are going to be fine with it. They're going to be happy that they saved $100 on the thing, and they're not going to care that you can't play it on the TV. To me, with all of the things that this thing pulled out of the regular Switch, all of those features it doesn't do, that huge list of things in the video, like I said, and on their website that shows what this thing doesn't do, to me, that justifies maybe down to the $199 price. Once I hear the main Switch feature of not being played on a TV is impossible, to me, makes me feel like it probably should be even cheaper. Even if it was only like $25 cheaper. Even if this thing was just $175. That would feel right to me. Knowing this thing can't be played on a TV literally makes me feel like $199 is too much money just for that one thing. And I know that I'm probably crazy and alone in that feeling, but that's truly how I feel about the TV concept. And I will continue to state, I think it's a missed opportunity for Nintendo. And I wouldn't be surprised if, even though I expect this thing to be a success in sales and to do well, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing had the ability to connect to a TV, if they wouldn't still get even more sales out of it. It's possible, 30 to 40% more sales might come from the Switch Lite if, in fact, it could also switch to your TV. I mean, I truly believe that is a missed opportunity, but you know what? At the end of the day, who cares? Who really cares? It's not for me. I'm not interested in it, and that's okay, because I think maybe a lot of you guys are interested in it, and a lot of kids are probably going to have fun with it, And maybe the sales continue to prove me wrong, and that's okay. I'm not usually worried about being, like, right or wrong. I enjoy being right, and so everyone's going to gloat when they're right, but I don't really care too much. I just want to see Nintendo do well, and I want to see this be a quality product, and I want to see people enjoy it and get their money's worth out of it, Like, not having a bigger battery life is another big unfortunate thing. So, you know what? There's a lot to pick apart with this thing, but I think I'm going to call it good. I've touched on most of the big bullet points that I felt was necessary to discuss. September 20th, $199. This thing is coming out. What do you guys think? You know, you guys are all the market, man. I'm not the market. I don't want this thing. It doesn't appeal to me. But a lot of you guys are the market. So discuss your feelings on this. I mean, is it everything you wanted it to be? Did you always believe in it? Were you skeptical and now you're shocked it's real? Does it look completely disappointing to you? Are you maybe more like me, where you're like kind of middle of the road on it, but more leaning towards not interested? Like, again, I see it as a quality device that will be good for people who want it. I just am disappointed that it's missing so many things that it probably should otherwise have. So, I don't know, where do you fall in line with this whole thing? I'm really curious to see how people are reacting. I've gauged some reactions from my Twitter post this morning, but I think I'll get a little bit more out of the comments on this video. So, you guys discuss it below. That is going to be it for me. This video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.